Hello, Facebook or wherever YouTube, wherever you're watching us. This recording is done to bring your attention to some important principles that are introduced through a challenge. I have the pleasure to have my co-host Hadi Mahochi from Montreal, and we have Mr. Dan Zinga. He is in South America somewhere, but originally
Colombia.
from USA. Welcome, gentlemen. Please introduce yourself. Tell us what are we discussing here. I enjoyed this morning. We've been talking for 45 minutes. I just flew by like this. Hadi or Dan, take it away.
Yeah, so yeah, before recording we were having a very interesting discussion, and I feel like Dan is very inspiring to me. Not only about his 21 challenges, because I don't even know what's the challenge yet, but only by he being himself, expressing his his uh, his outbringing, and this already was enough for me to get inspired by him. So unfortunately, we didn't record the story, but if you could tell it again, and then it would be very interesting for more people to get inspired by you, because I tell you, you are inspiring. So you started, all this started in Haiti, as you were telling me, after the earthquake. So could you please just tell me more about this situation?
Okay, thanks. Well, there was an earthquake that happened in 2010 where about around 500,000 people lost their lives. And this was like a 50-second earthquake, but it destroyed a lot of homes. I was actually working in Miami at the time at a mortgage company, and as somebody sent me the email like, "Oh, dark day that happened," and I didn't think it was anything serious, and I started seeing it come on the news, and then the next week was really hard to get in touch with people, and it was really like very very bad. So about a week after it, my brother said, "Hey, I got a private plane." The airplanes were all blocked; nobody could go in there. It was just crazy. You were just watching the news. People didn't know what to do. Everything was just like a big disaster.
Mm.
And my brother said, "Hey, I have an airplane with a bunch of doctors. You want to come? We're stopping in Miami." And I'm like, "Really?" Like for like weeks. Like, "Yeah, you got like 15 minutes to get to the airport. Are you coming or not?"
Wow.
And so that's how I ended up. And I remember I was like, I was married at the time. I called my wife. I was like, "Hey, get my clothes, get my stuff, meet me at the airport. Like, pack me a bag." you know, I'm going there. And then she's like, "What's going on?" I'm like, I'm going to Haiti to help out with these doctors." And then we went there. And that was such an extraordinary. We actually wrote it in my book, my last book, about that whole experience. I saw, you know, women getting their stomach cut open, pulling out babies because they were like, there was no hospital, so these doctors, we just made up.
Ah, yeah, yeah, yeah.
It was something really thing. But I realized in that week that being organized can save a lot of lives. Communicating better is not just doctors, because that first couple of days they're only able to really like help like 50 people. And then once I created a structure, because it was just chaos, chaos, chaos. I created a structure. I got a group of people. Said, "Hey, let's do security." We went to the line. We planned it. They were served like 250 people at the end. Like the last day. So, and they said, "Man, we were able to save more lives because of the structure that we created, so that people
Mm.
weren't interrupting the doctors all the time, because it was like such a chaos." So that made me say, you know what, being organized, communicating well, creating a sense of responsibility, that can help your health, can help the whole structure. Like, so that's like the basis of it. And so I just focused on that, and then we managed this camp, 20,000 people in the camp, and I was all about organizing. And we created 12 tribes, 12 groups in the camp, and then they had their leaders, they had their own committees, and I had meetings every morning. I mean, it was like the time of my life, even though I had friends who had lost all their family. This guy, he had a restaurant business, and his family was in it. The restaurant went down with
Oh,
7 family members, and so, and he was the only one that wasn't. He wasn't there. He was actually in the States, and he came back. He was like, "Oh my God, I lost everything. No money, like his business, his family." And he just put his energy into helping in the camp because he like didn't know what to do with it, so he won't go crazy. A lot of people were just messed up. People were still
oh,
stuck
wow.
under rubble. People that were they were pulling out. It was 10 days underground. It was a crazy situation, but I was living. When I say I living my time of my life, because I was contributing so much at a deeper
Mm.
level. It was such
But
an
also,
emotion.
There is one thing very important that I would like to highlight is the way that this opportunity came to you, because you had like 15 minutes to act, and like this is like big callings. And at that time, what did you feel? Were you like scared? Were you and you or like in your mind there was two choice or only one choice? Do you get my question?
Yeah, yeah. Well,
Mm,
the thing is, before, even though I had 15 minutes to decide, but
mm,
remember there was like a week of watching CNN and watching what happened, trying to call, okay, my parents are fine. Who's doing? Oh, they're hot because my parents had school too, and then oh, the school got messed up, or you're getting conflicting information. Somebody says something, and then they run with it. Oh no, and so we had this anxiety or this stress. It was hard to work or hard to focus on work. My
mm.
bosses were understanding of that this was a big thing. So when I had that opportunity, I just told them about, hey, I'm going to Haiti for a week with a group of doctors. Like there was no question of not going to help.
Mm.
It was like, wow, I have an opportunity. To me, it was an opportunity more than like an obligation. It was like, oh, I have to
Yeah,
go.
yeah, yeah.
And so
Because I found it's a great example because people tend to be scared of the opportunity of their life. Actually, I feel like the path, our path, everyone like everybody's path is scary actually, and we tend to flee from our path. And there you get a big sign. You know that I feel like life was preparing you for that moment. You were watching all the media, and then somehow you felt stuck, and then this when this opportunity arise, it can trigger some I don't know, mix of anxiety and
yeah,
stress, but you have to say yes, but because the good opportunity isn't easy.
you're right. And
Yeah.
the
And
interesting thing is, after that week, and we went back to the States, and then I had another opportunity to go, and I said, like, I'm gonna go for 2 weeks. And
mm,
I told my job again. They're like, okay, like, because I'm the manager. But
mm,
and I ended up staying 2.5 years. When I went, I remember my brother like, "How can you stay down there for so long? Like we can just go for like a week, 2 weeks. It's so stressful over there. It's such a." And for me, this was like my calling. This is what I love to do. And then
you
in
were
that,
in the flow.
yeah, I was in my zone. I was
Yeah.
in the flow, organizing people. I was talking to the military people. Like I was the only one, I would say, in the country that I would have meetings with Secretary of State, military people, and the poorest of the people. I was training them, so I kind of had a better view of
Yeah,
what
yeah.
was happening. They'd be having these meetings and they'd be having these plans. Like, we're gonna do this, we're gonna do that. I'm like, that's not gonna work because
You are the
X, Y,
connection
Z.
between the
Yeah, and the people on the bottom having these
yeah.
meetings about we're gonna do that. I'm like, no, that's not gonna work either. Like, so in a way, I was like a valuable asset in these meetings
Let
because
me
the
let me
talk
get
back.
something right. Dan, did you say you went for a week? You asked them for a week to go to this place that had earthquake,
Uh-huh.
and then some of the things you witnessed was this gentleman or this guy who was out of the restaurant, and then by the time he got back, all his family was wiped out.
Yeah, no,
That's
so
some of the
that happened to
examples.
several people. Yeah, 500 people. That's one somebody that I knew personally. It
And
lost.
then this week of vacation from your job to US, you stayed for 2.5 years.
No,
No,
no.
not to the U.S. To from the U.S. to this place.
Yeah,
I,
to the place, right?
Yeah,
To
yeah,
Haiti,
yeah,
let's say.
yeah. To Haiti, I would
And
say
you
two and a
stayed
half.
for 2 years.
Yeah, I did for 2 years
I'm
because
speechless. That's a
and
it
there
was such
calling.
a big. It was such a
That's
big
your
thing.
calling, my friend.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's definitely a calling. And there you talked about you started the university, or and there you
yeah.
started giving challenges.
Because at the end, after helping aid and emergency part, then people have to learn. So there's a lot of people that didn't know how to read. My family's big in church. My dad's a bishop, has a lot of stuff. But I was feeling like if somebody's been in the church for 10 years and they don't know how to read, that's on the path. Like that's not right. Like we got
Mm,
to teach people because you have to read to grow. And of course there were older people that feel like, oh, you're old, so you don't have to read. I'm like, no, everybody has. So that was just the start of it, and then it grew into I need to teach these other things like conflict resolution. And so every morning I would have my first meeting with the staff, the six people, my staff, and then with all the leaders of the communities, and then we'd have one big meeting with um, So there was 12 blocks. There was like 12. So I'd have 2 meetings every day with the whole block. So it'd be like hundreds of people. So every day I got to practice. And this is like a new thing for me of having these big meetings with hundreds of people that would come into this big church, and we'd have a
Mm.
meeting talking about what we're gonna do, what the plan is, giving them hope, and and I tell people like to do really something. Be like, how do you organize this stuff? We're the only camp where people are actually contributing, and the other the UF, what is it called, UNICEF, the Red
Mm.
Cross, all these big organizations, USAID, they were surprised. They're like, because they were came to have meetings with me, and I was in the camp, and people would come and they would, pay a little bit of money and get a receipt. They're like, what are they doing? I'm like, they're paying to have the security and the trash lifted up. They're like, how do you get them to do that? Because nobody ever does that. I'm like, because we've taught them that they have to contribute to themselves and they have
Mm-hmm.
to use this as an opportunity to grow. And they're happy to do that. And people were very proud to say, it's like $70, right? Not
So
70,
it's like
70,
starting the foundation of a country,
70
actually.
cents. Yeah, it was like 70 cents. It was like 70 cents a month that they were contributing, right? Per 10, which is nothing. But for them it was something because these people are really, really poor. And
Mm.
so that was the basis of it. Like you gotta have to have pride in yourself. And this is, and then it's all about organization, responsibility,
So,
you know.
so let me ask you this. Who better than Dan, who's organized the efforts of Earthquake to organize a 21-day challenge for the Blue Zone? I mean, I think this is a miracle. I believe that every person is a miracle worker if they take this challenge and believe that they're more than they are right now. Dan had a calling and he didn't. He said, and if I can remember, he called at the time he was married, he called his wife, said, pack me a bag, I'm going to Haiti for a week.
Right.
And he stays there for a 2 year
Two-year.
period because it's so illuminating to find your purpose, to find your calling. And that's what we're trying to do with this 21 days
And
challenge.
also, there is something interesting. He found his true purpose in like a catastrophic environment, you know. Sometimes people thinks that their mission or their calling would be in they looking for the safe zone or like the perfect environment. This guy went there in the catastrophic environment, and there he felt more alive than any time in
Yeah.
his life. Am I wrong?
Yeah, I always think that was like the most greatest time in my life, and I would go. I brag now that I can go 2 days without eating, 2 days without sleeping, 2 days without bathing, like
You're
because
not
I was
scared
so
anymore. You're in
engaged.
the fifth dimension.
I actually got sick after like one time because I was people thought that so in the camp there was like this group inside they thought I was eating in the camp, and then people in the camp thought I was eating in the office, and
Mm.
nobody was really like taking it. I was like, man, I haven't ate in like 2 days. Like, you gotta eat. So then after that, they made sure that I ate and I had stuff. But I remember just going 2 days because we were doing distribution, giving out food, doing stuff. I'm more coordinated with the military. That U.S. military came and helping organize stuff and giving vaccines to people. Like there was even like nowhere to use a bathroom. I had to pay a guy to dig a hole. And so, good thing in mortgages, I had made some money, so I could use my own money, and I was paying to do a lot of stuff. And then, and organizations also gave a lot of money, like the Red Cross and the Doctors Without Borders, rented.
Mm.
Came. So I had cleaning crews. I didn't believe in giving. Like I said, if you're gonna give, I told these charities, if you're gonna give stuff out, let's make people work for it because it's
Mm-hmm.
better for them. So everybody wanted to come in our camp to give away free stuff because our camp was well organized. But I always said, instead of just giving them this stuff, let's put them on a list. You're gonna clean up the morning, like you give us 1 week of work. So we had a structure where you have to give, clean up in the morning or crew to clean up. So our clean camp was like really clean because everybody was working for it. Even they were
Yeah.
giving out these houses, I said, let's make them work for it. So security guards, people were enrolling. So everybody was volunteering for all kind of activities because that's how
Teaching
they were.
teaching them to fish instead of giving fish.
Yeah, they had
Mm.
to get this. I'm like, if you give people free stuff, they don't even know the value of it.
Yeah.
A lot of times. So our camp was really well organized. I had people that were anybody that was cops, police officers that wanted to help out, help with security, that would come volunteer. Um, Even like I'm outside on the streets, it was making it nicer and everything. So it all with the aid that people were giving. I said, let's turn
Yeah.
this aid. I said, It's like, I can't. It's like you can't sell. I'm not gonna sell it. You can't sell it. But can I make people work for it? That's always my question. Like, yeah, if there people want to work for, it, I'm like, okay, good. Let's make people work for it. And to clean up, put a list of everyone that's gonna receive everything. Let's go clean up. And people who have too much pride, and they, I don't want to do the work. And
Yeah.
okay, you don't need the aid then. If you don't, if you're too high, if you don't need the aid, if you don't want to work for it, and so a lot of
So
people had pride in that. And so still today, one of the program that I started called People's University turned into IT Academy. This guy from California who'd been trying to help Haiti for years, but always kept on failing. People would take the money, steal it, and he's like, "Oh,
yeah.
I like this structure." So people had to go through my 3 month class, and then he would give them aid to apply for university. So I had so many people go through nursing school, engineer. They'd ask him, "What do you want to learn?" Because he was just giving stuff. I said, "You got to make it education." And then they created the systems like, oh, you already have the classes. And so still today, I'm not even involved anymore. Like I don't even know what's going on, but I know it's still going on because every now and then they say, oh, I see somebody graduating, and so I created it. I'm not even there anymore, you know. And then it's like, for a minute, I was kind of like, man, they kind of kicked me out of my own program, but that's not what happened. I left. I went back to the States after the two
you
years,
you let a legacy, and that's even more important.
yeah, and then people they would call, they say, "Hey, remember the thing you taught us? What is that? I'm teaching a seminar. What is that?" And I'll be so happy. Most people's experience that live in the United States, when people from Haiti are calling them, they don't want to answer the phone because they're just asking them for money. They're like, "Oh my God,
Mm,
my family asking for money." They just people don't understand. They say everyone just keep asking for money. But when I get calls from Haiti, I don't get that. People call me. My experience is they're asking me for a teaching tool or something that I like talking about. They're going to do a seminar. They're going to do that because those are who my friends are. If someone's not involved in that, I tell them when somebody can ask me for money, I say, hey, why don't you go take this class that you're going to learn how to
mm.
do this thing? And they don't want to hear that, so they just stop calling me.
So this was like the base of what you're doing right now. So when you came back to Haiti, how did you turn all this energy and use it to build your business right now?
So then it took a while, but when I went back to when I went back to the States, and then I was trying to like get support and to help and everything, but little by little, things change. And what I brought back with me is the whole community aspect of helping people. And I realized that the stuff I was teaching, even people in the United States need this stuff. This is like
Mm,
it's not just poor people that I realize a lot of people don't communicate well, and that's why a lot of stuff fail. They don't plan well, or they don't. So learning how to stay in communication, follow up, in business, and this is business principles, really. Follow up
hmm.
is all part of communication. Organizing your thing so people can understand it, so you can understand it, so you can function better, and then responsibility. So it's like the program I started. By the way, I love cats. The program I started is CORE, CORE, and I created my first 21-day challenge. CORE, communication, organization, responsibility, and excellence. And the theory is if you practice these things, then everything else will fall into place. Just focus on how well can I communicate, and that's what I did with my team in Haiti. We every meeting after an event or before, we're like, okay, how well did we communicate? That everybody knew that was going on. How can we have communicated better? Okay, was it well organized? How can did we give the information? Because they have a culture of holding information.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, yeah.
yeah, there's just a culture of like being, oh, I got this, not sharing. And I'm saying you're safer if everybody knows than if you're having a secret and people are coming to get your stuff. It's only gossip if it's a secret. Once it's out in the public and you're there, it's not gossip anymore. It's not a problem.
Open source.
Yeah, and be a
Mm.
source. Be the source to give information, not to hold information. And they think they're special, and it gives them power if they know.
Actually, because they are scared. If they share, they're not special anymore and they lose their value. But actually, by sharing the value, you get even more value and more respect. This is what I believe.
Exactly. So it's a lot of stuff, and I think I just love teaching. I would give credit to my dad, who is a bishop and has the
Mm.
same kind of personality, always doing all these things. Hey, I'm gonna build a hospital. He had a dream. I'm gonna build a hospital. I'm gonna tell you how my dad got build a hospital in Haiti. It's such a crazy story. I'm gonna tell you in 1 second. You know those guys in Nigeria, and this is years later after the hospital was built. He said,
Yeah, yeah,
you're having a meeting, people like, what was your vision? What is this? And then he was tell you, and he just like told the like, people ask us my vision. You know how this started? So these Nigerians sometimes they send messages say, "Hey, I have $1 million in the bank, but I gotta, they'll send you a message and say somebody died and they inherited. I work at a bank and they got the money, but we don't know how to get the money out, so I can send you some of the money if you give it to you, whatever. And he
Yeah.
wasn't up to game on what that was, so he gets this thing that said that he's gonna get $1 million, and he's so excited. He tells all of his pastor friends, "Oh, I'm gonna get $1 million. I'm gonna buy a land in Haiti. I'm gonna do." He starts making plans on it. He just took action, and he's like, "Okay, so yeah, we're gonna do some paperwork. We get the million." And he's like, "Okay, cool." He went to the landowner and said, "Look, I'm gonna get this money." Of course, he's a pastor. They all believe him,
Yeah.
but there's no money.
He was a visionary. Was he? He was
Yeah.
a visionary, right? He
So all
cast a
this,
vision, and the
yeah.
money would show up. Am I
They were gonna
correct?
build a hospital. These pastors, like other people, like, "Oh, I want to be involved in that." It's like we're waiting for the down payment. And somebody said, "Yeah, I'm gonna give $10,000." They're gonna give $10,000 to be part of this vision because they thought a million was coming.
Yeah.
They're naming it, and then he got $10,000. He gave a down payment to get the land. He said, "Yeah, the rest of it's coming." And then the money really never came. He kept on saying, "Okay, with the money, like, oh, first you got to send us 500 for it. You got to, and they were playing him. But by then, he had so many people that he just told everybody, all the pastors that wanted to be involved, and we're gonna build this hospital. We're gonna have missionary people come from universities and come and do, treatment and work out in this, like even like training in this hospital and all this stuff. And we're gonna, like, he had all this whole thing mapped out, and that energy, people started contributing, and then there was a network that said, "Oh, you come on our show and talk," and then they started raising the money too, and then it all just happened off of somebody who lied to him, right? I think it's such an amazing story. When I didn't even know that story. He tells us later in secret. He's like, "This is what really happened." He's like, we were like, "Where are you getting the money?" And we thought he was getting the money but the way he inspired all these people to help out, because
Yeah.
he thought that he had this $1 million for the
So
hospital, right?
Dan, this has been one of the most incredible conversation I
And
had
let me
with
just say this one
Hadi.
last thing: the hospital now is they built a $5 million hospital, even off of yeah. They built a $5 million. It's a huge building, one of the biggest, one of the nicest, biggest
So
buildings.
he got even bigger
Because
hospital than what
yeah,
he planned.
people started
Yeah.
contributing, and then they took
That's
kind of
amazing.
people were so after this was before the earthquake. So when the earthquake happened, this was one of the buildings. The structure was so well that didn't go down. So
Hmm.
the Red Cross and all of them came, and we used that building, that was in the process to they took over the building, the Red Cross. Then they had a hospital, and then that was right on their compound. And so Doctors Without Borders and the Red Cross really helped a lot in the camp. So that helped me with the camp because I
Bec-
had a lot of people coming to that area because we had such a structure already with the land, the school, and everything.
do you think is it's because the project was built, the source of this project comes from abundance, because life is it's generous, God is generous. He wants to give you even more than what you want. But somehow he accessed even more than what he needed because he was open to that. So
Right. No,
do you think it has to do something with that?
yeah, definitely. If you just always, my dad always said, look, even if I didn't have money, I don't have money, and American Airlines came to offer me to buy the plane, I would actually listen to them to say, what is it? Let me hear. He said, just be open to possibilities and trying
Hmm.
things. And if that's one thing that I think, hopefully, I got through my genes is just go do it, figure it out. If you fail, he did a lot of businesses that didn't work out, or a lot of projects with the church, and said, "Hey, guys, we got this project. They're starting a car company called Champion, and then that fell through. Then they started an oven company. They're gonna, they tried a lot of stuff that didn't work, but a lot of stuff did work. All you need is a couple things to work,
Yeah,
and just keep trying things. And so,
Yeah,
but
it's a
he
I
team
get
sport. Team sport, like Vic says, Victor. It's a team sport because they give you that structure of, let's say, this whole Red Cross coming in. It was easier for you to build that team, to build that
right.
coordination, give you home base kind of.
Right. It gave me a platform to do it. And everything that he had been doing all his many years gave him the reputation. So it was easy for me to do things. They just know who my dad was. And it's like, oh, okay. And so that's why I had access to all these other things. Mayors were people that used to come and ask my dad for help because through this hospital thing, those are the people who gave ambulances, like a bunch of organizations from the United States gave ambulances, gave fire trucks, gave all these things, medical supplies. People just donating stuff all over the United States to this hospital. And then this is actually before the earthquake. So
Mm.
my dad was used to being the source of giving stuff to senators and mayors and people always asking him for stuff, and he's donating these all these things to him. And people was like, "Oh man, your dad is rich," but in reality, he's just the source. The stuff is coming. He's
Mm.
just the guy with the vision, and people trust him. I mean, I would say my dad's biggest asset is the trust, that people just trust him, and they give him stuff, so he gives it away, medicine, all this stuff. So he just keeps giving stuff, so he becomes a source because you can't do anything with it anyway. I mean, you can't keep the truck, you can't, right? You can't keep the
From
medicine for yourself. You got
from
to
what
give.
I from what I understood, right now, your dad, your hero, is living his purpose, and he's down it actually one generation to you. That's the highest calling, to teach your children or offspring or next generation how to live on purpose, which is what you're doing. Yours is separate from his, but you have the genealogy. In here, we come from two places: one, DNA; the other, environment. That's what shapes a person: the
Hmm.
environment and your DNA.
Yeah,
DNA comes with us, we don't have a choice. Environment, we can change. And with environmental challenges like the one that you're putting together, we can even impact our DNA.
right.
It's if a person is born poor, it's not their fault. But if they die poor, it's their fault. So everything in this effort is to create some sort of legacy, if you will. That's your father's legacy, man. That's admirable. This is so powerful. This was so good. I'm
Yeah,
so glad
thanks for
Hadi is
giving me
so
time.
calmly. I'm very excited. I get excited. My wife says to read the newspaper, but Hadi brings another angle. Calmly, controlly, ask some key
and
questions.
I don't
Thank you
usually talk
both.
about
Thank
my
you so
dad.
much.
Thank
I don't
you.
usually talk about my dad, but thanks for giving me the opportunity to do that and at least spiritually or mentally connect that with him and all these memories. So thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you. God bless your dad. I think he is a wonderful person, and I can see it through him, through you. I mean,
So
Oh,
this
yeah.
all right.
to summarize this, Dan, we got introduced to you through Victor, and he said, "Man, I found the right person. I found the right person." I'm saying, "Who's this right person?" And then we tried calling you a few times. Taking action is the key to connecting. I was persistent. I called you so many times. Finally, you picked up and said, "Listen, I'm on top of some mountains. I can't barely hear myself. I can't hear you, but let's talk." So I'm going to call some other people who are involved. We put this challenge together on Saturday. This Saturday, we have Robert Amodi, who is the person in my mentor in Syracuse, USA. And he basically is a turnaround expert. He takes businesses that are struggling, partner up with millionaires, multimillionaires. His company is called Synergy. Basically, it's on the Eventbrite. So if anybody likes this conversation or have a conversation with Dan or any of the members of this core group, you make sure you go and get yourself a ticket right here at Eventbrite. You just, like my partner said, Google Blue Zone and you'll find this link right here. This is interview with Mr. Robert Amodi. That's the person. You can go and do that for this week. Those of you who are ready to take the challenge, you can also go on here on camelcare.ca, go to the professional career development course. This is the challenge we're putting together for 21 days. It's not going to cost you $7,500, which is the value that it provides, but with fraction of the cost and the speed record that Dan is an expert in putting together this challenge in physical, mental, emotional, and we got a whole full circle to get some people into their own zone to help them reach their purpose, whatever it is, on three topics: health and wellness, which is my challenge. I will run that health and wellness. I was 3.5 months ago, I was at 207 pounds. I couldn't go down. Today, I went onto the scale. I was 195 exactly. 195. And it's been my goal for the last 10 years to go below 200 pounds. So we're doing what we're practicing. Next one is organizing. Hadi's help us organizing this room, organizing this interview so we can bring in people like Dan and have two perspective on asking them questions that are impactful, that are calling, that are, man, I love the story of Dan's going to the earthquake zone and not coming back for 2 years. That sounds like 7 years in Tibet. That would
Yeah.
be 2 years in Haiti, learning all
Right.
this skill.
I should write a book about that. 2 years in Haiti.
You
There's
should.
so much
You should.
happening. We just wanted to encourage everybody to register for this Saturday on Eventbrite, because I used to coordinate teams with Primerica, 50, 100, 200, 500, to bring millionaires to speak to them. We have a multi-millionaire, a personal friend that is very humble, philanthropic millionaires, we call. These are people who want to give back, like Dan's dad. He gets money from one hand, he gives it to the other hand, and it's always flow of money in his hands. Why? Receive and give, receive and give. That's how it works in this community. Thank you, Dan, and thank you, Hadi. And I'm going to stop this recording. Hope everyone joins us on Saturday.
Thank you.